Hi, I'm Joe Sinkwitz, CEO of IntelliFluence. If you're here, that might be because you're interested in improving your branding on social media. Well, what if I told you that influencers are a lot more useful than just social media? If you go ahead and go through this entire course, you're going to find that they could be used in just about any medium you could possibly think of. Why should you go through the course? Because at the very end, I'm going to give you 1 year free access to our platform. Look to see you in there.
All right, and here we go. So this is a channel for every enterprise. Influencers are everywhere. As I mentioned, my name is Joe Sinkwitz. I have been in the digital marketing industry for quite some time now. Started in 1997 doing some SEO for some very difficult industries, and over time have found myself now as the CEO of IntelliFluence, a very large influencer marketing network. So I've had the fortunate opportunity to manage thousands of clients. I've been able to play in a lot of different facets of online marketing, which has helped to shape my perspective here. The summary of the talk is, as I mentioned, is that influencers really are everywhere. They're in all sorts of channels. And while I was asked initially to discuss branding from a social media perspective, it's important to point out that you're going to run into narratives that run counter to reality as it pertains to whether or not a particular channel is dead. So I'm already seeing instances where talking heads are essentially proclaiming that Instagram is dead because of TikTok, or that Facebook is dead because of TikTok. Chances are that's just not going to be the case. There's a lot out there. Influencer marketing is not going to ever stop until the word of mouth disappears. And since that is basically our humanity, you're good to go for quite some time here. As a primer into influencer marketing, what I like to say is that there is a fundamental misunderstanding when it comes to B2B and B2C companies that they're approaching. Influencing is really just, as dumbed down, having someone else tell your story for you. That is the essential nuts and bolts of influencer marketing. So why do these influencers exist? To create compulsions. All right, so what is compulsions? What is compulsion marketing? It's a concept loosely based on the video games of compulsion loops, which we coined about 6 years ago. And all this is really doing is you're taking an understanding of when you're playing a video game. Maybe you're trying to get enough coins to get that next suit of armor, or you're trying to play a certain role as a mechanism to earn experience points. What's happening with the game is it's designed to keep you playing longer and longer. For marketing purposes, it's the same concept where you're taking a variety of activities and you're stringing them along in such a way that you hit certain psychological drivers in order to create that compulsion to purchase. So you're creating this overall anxiety, which can only be alleviated by the purchase of a product or service that you're pushing. That's the overall strategy, and it really is a strategy as much as it is an actual singular tactic. So how did I fall into this compulsion marketing? So as I mentioned, I was heavily into the affiliate and SEO days. From there, we also did quite a bit of PPC, and we understood that when we paired getting traffic in initially and capturing consumer information, we were able to utilize and make more money by pairing it with email. Okay, so after that, after 2013 or so, I went over to CopyPress and ran their sales and marketing. I became a convert because they were handling things differently. Their goal was to create really beautiful, in-depth content, whereas previously I was doing somewhat disposable content with my affiliate stuff. So I understood from their perspective how to create this great content and pair it with native ads in order to amplify and get it out there further. Well, in 2016, when I founded IntelliFluence, I started to understand that influencers could be a magnification methodology. So I started to pair and play around with the concepts of how would I put together PPC and SEO in really broad, rock star content and content marketing, pair it with influencers and make it all work together. So I started to play around and figure out the ordering. And I came into understanding that there's different influencers for different types that's going to make this work the best. Just to keep it real brief, I like to bucket things, and so we look at 3 different types of influencers that you're going to come across. The aspirational, more the celebrity type influencers. They're the people that you want to be but cannot necessarily be. Therefore, you could buy the products and services that give you a closeness associated. Authoritative influencers are primarily the topical experts. They're the people that you go to see when you go to a conference to hear talk. Those are the people that earn their way on stage. And the peers are really the most powerful. It's our friends, it's our neighbors, it's our family, it's the person across the street, it's the person you meet in the park. It's the peer. What key psychological drivers come into play here? There's four. So on the aspirational celebrity side, it's hero worship. Because like I said, you can't be that individual, but you might be able to purchase the product he or she is selling. With authority, they're usually teaching something. I had a situation recently where I had to replace a part of plumbing in my toilet, and it was quite difficult. I'm not particularly good at that sort of work. But what I found after wasting a lot of time is I went to a YouTube video and found a grizzled old plumber that was able to fix my problem in about 30 seconds. And I really listened to the end of his video, because at the end he said, and if you have a problem with this particular part, your next part to fail is right over here. And he showed the part and held it up in his hand, and he provided a link where you could purchase it on Amazon. I purchased that product. He appealed to the authority of him being an expert and letting me know what I was going to need. Wealth signals are what you might think of as keeping up with the Joneses. This is the peer pressure psychological driver. If my neighbor across the street buys the beautiful looking cyberpunk Tesla truck, I might be interested in it. Even on a base level, I might say, okay, well, that's pretty cool. I'm taking a look. I understand. I trust this guy, Keith. He understands what he's doing in his life. Maybe that's pretty neat. But then take it to the next level. It's a pack mentality, unity, the need and the desire to feel belong. Let's say Keith got that Cybertruck. And then a week later, Bob on the other side of me also gets a Cybertruck. 5 days after that, Jim on my south side neighbor, he gets a Cybertruck. All of a sudden, whether or not I initially had any desire to have this product, I'm being forced to have an opinion on this vehicle. Either I'm going to have to love it and get one myself, or I'm going to have to hate it and be able to justify why I do. These are the psychological drivers that drive a lot of our overall consumer behavior, whether or not we're actually aware of it. So now you know what these particular influencer types are. That's great. So there's a lot of different channels. I want to preface this real quick. How did I go about deciding this? I had read a piece in Spectrio on 51 most effective channels for advertising a person's business. I thought it might be a really good way to dovetail into the talk that Anatoly asked me to do here, where I could be lazy and just look at the social media channels, or I could be a lot more in depth and detailed. And this is not going to be an exhaustive list. This is impossible to do. Every time I'm creating a new one of these for my upcoming book and I'm writing an article, I find 3 more channels. And so it's going to be a never-ending process. But I liked how Spectrio grouped the channels, so we're going to use this for the context of this particular course. I'm going to start with those most obvious. I'm going to end with the least obvious, where those influencers can be used to really take it to your competition. What are these groups? We're going to talk about non-social internet marketing channels, social media channels, public relations channels, paid advertising channels, and physical marketing channels. Within the non-social channels, we have marketplaces like Amazon, blogging on your own blog, blogging on someone else's blog, chatbots, live chat, newsletters, podcasts, SEO, and here I'm talking about other metrics like user signals, webinars, website, your own website, differentiated, of course, from your own blogging, white papers, and then virtual reality, augmented reality. On the social channel side, we're going to do everything from GMB, Facebook ads, groups, profiles, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Reddit, TikTok, Twitch, Twitter, Yelp, and YouTube. I know I'm just rattling these off pretty fast here. Within public relations, we're going to talk about conferences, hosting your own events, media interviews, press releases, speaking events, sponsorships, paid advertising, such as affiliate marketing, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, billboards, mailers, next door, which arguably can be on the social side, non-UGC related social ads, podcast ads, print advertising, radio advertising, TV advertising. On the physical side, to wrap it all up, we're going to talk about brochures, loyalty cards, digital signage, exterior signage, free consultations, giveaways, interactive signs, on-hold messaging, overhead style marketing, packaging, and promotions. So I'm going to be speaking as fast as I can because I'm going to try to keep this course as brief as I possibly can. I did a test and it was an hour and a half, so I want to try to take that down just a little bit. So I'm going to describe an example of what the channel is, what type of influencer I think would work best for you on that particular type of channel, and how an enterprise could try to incorporate that. And by enterprise, I mean large company, small company. There's really no differentiation here. Starting off, let's talk about Amazon. So obviously it's a giant marketplace, and this includes other marketplaces such as Walmart. The type of influencer that tends to work here is the peer level. It's the general consumer that would be used on a marketplace such as this. There is an argument to be made that there are some authoritative professional reviewers on those platforms, but most people don't pay that close attention to this. What I like to see, though, is there's a lot of incorrect methodologies employed when it comes to getting reviews. You have to be honest. I like to ask reviewers if they're doing this type of work to actually purchase a product, use it, take a video of it, take a photo of it, upvote other good reviews, and then leave an honest review with that imagery proof of them having used it. Just doing that, chances are you're going to get a decent review on your product. That for most people, if they're getting the product and they actually get to play with it and they like it, they're going to leave a good review. Just do not insist on a 5-star review. That will backfire. Amazon will remove you. It's just not a pretty process. So let's talk about your own blog. You have web assets that live on your website, and this is an authoritative attempt. What you're doing is you're actually doing kind of like a reverse guest posting experience. You want to bring on an author that is well known in your industry, or someone that's highly followed in your industry, and give them a platform where they can talk about any topic really that's relevant to your company on your blog. The reason this is so important is because you want to incentivize them to share out to their particular audience, whether on social or email, that they're associated. Take it further, there's a lot of SEO benefit to having known author entities associated with your site. There is a transfer of authority that occurs here. But the reverse side of it is you're looking to try to build up your authority. Maybe you'd go so far, and this is not just buying links on a guest post, that anyone could do that, and you could do that in a lot of different services. What you're looking to do in this particular case is you're looking to find other industry sites that are authoritative, and you're going to want to try to create an incredible piece of information that you're putting on their site, because you're trying to associate, hey, I'm an expert too, and I'm being seen on this expert site. It's an authority transfer. This is going to come up quite a bit whenever we're talking about authoritative influencers. If you're even able to collaborate with multiple experts in your field, then that allows you to have publication on multiple platforms. It allows you to use your influence, allow them to use their influence, cross-pollinate your multiple email lists. This is one of those things where it keeps on giving. I really love when you're able to do collaborations of this type. Chatbots are not often seen as an influencer channel, but you'll see that how they could be. And the simplest version, maybe you have Intercom or Zendesk on your site. You have a little widget that pops up, and it's just set up with a very basic if-then statements of, if a keyword is mentioned, go on to the next step. That's fine. And chatbots can be useful as a mechanism to help the user find the answer they're looking for as quickly as they possibly can. It tends to be a peer level influence when it's done correctly. And the way that's done correctly is not just serving up the particular FAQ article that might help, but it's saying something along the lines of, hey, 151 people that had purchased this particular product that asked about the question you're asking about found this particular article the most helpful. You're adding a level of understanding of who the consumer is and other consumers also having been satisfied with a particular answer. That's all it really is. You're just trying to give them a little reassurance that you're sending them to the right direction. Now, of course, chatbots can't solve every situation. Sometimes a human needs to be involved. And when you're going to that peer level and you're trying to figure out who's going to be the best person, you do not put an intern on the live chat and hope that it's going to work out for the best. What you want to do is you want to appeal to the authority. So 90% of those general requests can be answered with a chatbot. But there's going to be a certain number that really can't. They need a human. And the best thing you could possibly do is show them that they're working with someone with the authority to answer their question. So in this particular case, would you feel more satisfied dealing with level 1 tech support or with Susan, the director of product experience? It's just a matter of providing a name and a title that allows a person to feel a little bit more comforted when we're working with someone. That helps quite a bit with retention. It helps a lot with product and consumer experience. So if you're managed by your NPS scores, this is something to pay attention to. Newsletters are a medium that I love working with. Like right now, I'm trying to be in any relevant newsletter I possibly can because it's working really great for me. And it's an authoritative style influence that you're doing. Because what works best, I find, is if I were to take my product and put it into the hands of a newsletter owner and allow them to describe their experience working with my product, it doesn't even have to be a hard sales pitch. All they're doing is they're teaching and educating an audience that is clearly wanting to pay attention to this sort of thing, and they're being guided towards my product as a solution to their potential problem. And it's advertising, it's branding, it's evangelism, all rolled into one. Newsletters are fantastic. And podcasts are essentially the audiovisual version of newsletters, if you think about it. You have these passionate and targeted audiences, and they're looking to consume information anyhow. So again, if I can get my product in the hands of someone that's running a podcast and have them describe it over the course of a show, even if it, the ad stuff we're going to talk about later, there's an authority transfer that occurs. But what works even better is if you can be a guest on such a podcast. And you can go through an interview process, the back and forth, the ping pong, if you will. When that occurs, there's an authority transfer that occurs from the interviewer to the interviewee. So by the end of it, if you have passed this particular expert test, you're now seen as authority. And you don't even have to sell very hard. You just answer questions, be thoughtful, and help the audience when you're thinking of your answers. And by the end, you just happen to have a product that is a solution to their particular problems. Now, there's a lot of things we could talk about with SEO, and obviously there's going to be a lot of courses you're going to go through here. I love to dumb it down just in the sense of a couple bucketing. Again, I like to think of links as various signals. There's a lot of signals that go into links. Content as a whole as signals, and user interaction as associated signals. I want to view this in the context of peers and who would actually use a website. There's things that you could do using low-level influencers. Let's think about if you wanted to improve your dwell time and navigation query satisfactions. Well, what would happen if you use these particular influencers to run a variety of queries within Google or Bing or whatever engine that you're focused on, and you have them, click your result, and you ask them to perform a series of actions, such as, take a look at the third button on the right and let me know what color would be better than what you're currently seeing, and justify your answer in a written response. While the influencer might believe they're performing a particular function, the end function that they're actually doing is they're getting a nice click through. They're navigating if you created the queries correctly that you want them to do, and they're getting satisfaction because chances are they spent some time on your site answering that question. You're probably not going to go back and click on a competitive site. This does play out. It works nicely. Within webinars, there's a couple different aspects, whether you're going to be using a peer or authoritative. It's similar to a podcast situation where having a person use your product works the best. This is a little bit trickier because chances are you're probably going to end up having to purchase the time of an authoritative influencer who maybe they actually own their own webinar series, in which case it's going to be fairly straightforward in how to do it. If they don't, you're going to be having to pull them in and have them run a webinar on how to use your product. You don't have to sell it. You really don't have to push very hard, just how to use your product in the context of solving a particular problem. So in my case, how would you use IntelliFluence to get t-shirt sales on Instagram? And so they're just walking through how they use their product, showing some details of a campaign that they ran in the past. It's as simple as that. If you can't get authorities, though, what you could do is you can try to incentivize some of your existing users and customers to walk through videos. When you do that, you could just you could do it almost in bulk. So you're getting little Loom videos of here's how I had success with product XYZ. Simple as that. And you could use this within your own drip marketing as you're reaching out to prospects. It's still useful. It's not as great as authoritative though. So I see the peer influencer style videos as a stopgap until you can get the authoritative webinars. Using your own website though, there's multiple ways to do this. What I mean by this is it's a peer style influencer concept where you're attempting to show likeness. You're trying to create a common ground. Referrals. Let's say you ran that t-shirt Instagram campaign and you had some good looking results. You take the actual Instagram card. Well, on your landing page, what would happen if a user in the future comes in from Instagram? You recognize it's coming in from Instagram, and on the landing page you show Instagram cards of positive reviews. What you're doing there is they're an Instagram user, you know they're an Instagram user, and you're showing an Instagram related review. It's just applying a little bit of that sameness. It's just kind of nudging on that peer review. The other thing I love to do is referrals, where we have quite a few flywheels within our own platform, which are set up and designed to try to get people to bring on their friends and family. If they're having a good experience in any particular product, ask for the referral. You'll be surprised at how well it actually works. White papers, I don't want you to confuse this with like a salesy ebook. A white paper is a kind of a long form, usually highly detailed and educational content. And what you're looking to do is create an authoritative piece. There's a couple ways that you can go about it. You can go ahead and sponsor a white paper that's already been written and created by an expert. There are lots of opportunities. You'll find this if you interact with just about any major digital marketing publication in our particular industries. They'll offer you the opportunity to latch on to someone else's expertise and authority, so the authority transfer. The other thing is if you're actually writing the white paper and you're able to collaborate, once again, similar to the guest posting concept, with multiple authoritative individuals, you can have an additional conveyance of authority. And if you're able to gate the download, that's even better because you could treat it as a lead generation. This is actually the demand exchange model. I recommend you go take a look at them if you're in any sort of a tech and SaaS industry. There's a big demand for those that just want to consume white papers. Now, as a cynic, I would say that a lot of Fortune 500s might request the white paper just so they can have a white paper. It doesn't actually have any bearing on whether the product's any good or not, but because sometimes it's just a checklist for procurement, recommend you do it. Now, VIR and AR is interesting to me. I see VR as a little bit of a fad. It's not really there yet. It's a little bit bulky. Virtual reality is a tricky thing. But I see augmented reality is working quite well. Now, there's a lot of strategies that you could use this, and I see Google and Apple probably doing extremely well in this, where envision that you're on a beach, right? And it's very hot, you're thirsty, and your phone recognizes that within 500 feet, there are vending machines that are selling Gatorade. And so it understands, okay, I'm going to queue up this augmented reality of Michael Jordan walking up to you and say, oh, it's hot. It's so hot outside. When I'm playing basketball, I just wish I had a Gatorade when it's hot like this. It's like, hey, there's a Gatorade over here. Why don't you just go ahead and tap the Apple Pay button, get one right now, and you walk over and it's ready for you. Those strategies, and granted, it's a rather specific example, those strategies are going to be everywhere. I see the people using the augmented reality translations all the time. I speak, 2 languages, English and bad English. So, if I'm traveling, in a country where that's not a dominant language, I desperately need that sort of assistance. So I'm going to be more prone to use augmented reality that's doing live menu translations and live street name translations to understand where I am. I'm going to be very likely to purchase the products I'm putting out because I'm in a vulnerable state. With Google My Business, this is obvious. There's a lot of business profiles that exist, and there are reviews that you can get for them. Google My Business is being one of them. It's a peer level concept similar to Amazon, where you want to have honest reviews. The best case usually means working with your existing base. I see a lot of specific platforms out there that will ask for the review as part of their overall transaction flow, usually near at the end, where they know the chances are the consumer is satisfied and therefore they ask the review at that point in time. You can get into trouble by only trying to solicit good reviews, so be careful about that. You do probably just want to use the flywheel of, if you know that a user, once they perform a particular action on your site, is generally happy, that's when you pop this. You ask for them to leave the Google My Business review or the Facebook profile review. That's along those lines. Facebook ads tend to be interesting to me. Everyone that is on Facebook has been seeing these ads. They're all over the place. Now, there are different styles of influencer types that you could use for Facebook ads. I tend to look at it in terms of peer or authoritative. There are celebrity influencers, right? So there are aspirational influencers. But generally, I sort of segment up and put those into different platforms. And here, what I'm looking for is the UGC content. So someone that's creating original content in a review format for a product or service. If the influencer also happens to be in Facebook's creator program, you could go in within your ad setup and you could just pull them into a campaign. You're just basically promoting your post. It works really great. For whatever reason, the UGC related promoted content tends to work better than brand created content. I don't particularly know why, other than to think that perhaps the peer level psychological trigger is working a little bit harder, and maybe the branded content tends to be a little bit more washed and less authentic. But that would be my thinking there. Within Facebook groups, there's quite a few. There's any topic that you can think of, there's probably a Facebook group for. And these are peer influencers. These are people that might be product purchasers. There are various ways that you can work within Facebook groups. The way that I'll tell you don't want to do is join a whole bunch of groups and try to spam them really quickly. I've been banned before. I do not recommend doing that. You get to put in timeouts, 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, a couple weeks, a month. You don't want that. The easiest way is if you're not willing to spend a lot of time ingratiating yourself to the group and providing great content, is just work with the moderator. The moderator of the group, reach out to them, let them know what you're looking to do and whether or not you can have them advertise the product for you. Let them do a review within the Facebook group. That ends up working the best. Now, the Facebook profiles, this is essentially the same thing as the Facebook ad. You're just not doing the actual promoted content piece of it. This is where a lot of the peer reviewers I find for my own platform work out the best, where it's a bulk process. You're looking to get a lot of different voices on your product, reviews out there. Simply because you're fighting against the algorithm, you're never really knowing how much of that edge rank is going to result in visibility for your stuff. That's why I like this brand out. Now, Instagram, this is usually the channel most people think of when it comes to influencer marketing as a whole. It's a very visual channel. I see usually two types. It's either celebrity, so aspirational, or peer level. I rarely see authoritative level influencers on the platform because that's usually garnered for education. And while there can be cases where that does exist, let's think of it in terms of celebrity or peer. And it really depends on the goal. Like if you have a mass consumable product that works against a really broad audience, so aspirational celebrities can work out great. But usually, similar to the Facebook trying to defeat EdgeRank, you're probably going to do better having a bulk of peer level reviewers reviewing your product or service. And it's so long as that product or service lends itself to a visual usage of the product. Some products simply do not. Like if you have a cybersecurity product, Instagram may not make sense unless there's a really neat visual way that you can explain it. It does not convey itself to deep understanding. But what does is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, obviously, everyone that has a work email is probably on LinkedIn, whether or not they know it. This works primarily with authoritative influencers. And really, I spend a lot of my time on LinkedIn for various reasons. If you're in any sort of B2B, you need to be in this particular platform. I do recommend LinkedIn Sales Navigator because it's a handy way to segment and find potential leads, to drip out pieces of information at them as a mechanism to getting more sales and higher paying leads. Now, they're big. Where LinkedIn kind of falls short sometimes is they tend to copy other aspects of platforms such as Facebook, where they injected the video feeds, or they'll have weird looking polls that are not really conducive to what one would think of LinkedIn being a professional sales network. But overall, there's no better source of B2B people. If you're doing anything where you're targeting business people, you have to be on LinkedIn. Pinterest, I view as Instagram for the most part. It's very similar. It's a really different setup, of course. You're using pins and pin boards versus the feed, but it's handy though because it's really, really curated. So individuals will follow particular boards because they want that specific content. This peer level works the best. There is some celebrity aspects and to a degree some authoritative. For instance, cooking, someone that's really shown themselves to be a very good chef. Maybe you're following them for particular recipes because you trust their input. But it's a visual concept, therefore product needs to be visual to convey properly. It does tend to skew more female than male in terms of audience. So if you are selling a product with a particular demographics, you might have more success here. It also helps for a parasitic SEO strategy. So you can create a variety of pin boards with a product or service that potentially will rank if you hit it hard enough with some tier 2, tier 3 links. But let's skip that for a little bit. Reddit is difficult. So Reddit, it's one of those influencer platforms where if you're not really careful, you'll get booted and made fun of very, very quickly. If you're new to a subreddit, you want to treat it like Facebook, where the Facebook groups rather, where go to the moderator and just you want to DM them, you want to ask them, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. I want to play nicely within your group. Would you be willing to do a review on what I'm selling here? Please here's what I'm willing to offer. If they take it, you're probably fine. If they don't even bother continuing on. It won't work out so well. Reddit has its own ad strategy and it's decent and it's evolving quite a bit. The most success I ever had with Reddit was taking a product which was very difficult to sell and it was a little bit silly. So I got the community to make fun of it and they made fun of it so much that it went viral. And from that virality, we were able to get a lot of media exposure and interviews in various publications like Playboy, Maxim, and Verge. So there are methodologies, if you don't have a straightforward mechanism to getting reviews on Reddit, to use it as a launching point for virality, but it's a dangerous game, just be careful. TikTok is growing like a weed. And there's a lot of uncertainty as to its future from a governmental point of view. Certain governments are looking at banning it. We'll see if that happens. The type of influencers you're going to find the most are peer level, almost exclusively, really. And then there's a lot of aspirational aspects to it, but there are some inflated following counts that occur in TikTok, so it's a little bit fuzzy. We did a really long influencer compensation strategy study on this, so you may find that you might want to take a look at that before you determine how much you're going to pay these individuals. But what you're going to find is that the videos are very, very quick. So it's hard to be authoritative and convey a long-term expertise in a particular product or service. But it's great for virality. So if you're able to get a large number of peers to describe your product and service as part of a review, let their audience do the heavy lifting, because sometimes it'll just go viral and you don't really have a ton of say in it at that point. There are memeable campaigns that you can see, like what's popular and how do I create reviews that's tangential to that particular meme. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I do see what works is if you're able to find one large aspirational influencer and then pile on with several smaller influencers, you can have a lot more success, because then what you're doing is you're kind of forcing the virality to a degree. Twitch, it's primarily popular with the video gaming crowd because it is a live stream, but I see this shifting over time into overall live stream of experiences. I think it's going to play a role within travel. It's going to play a role within eating and dining. People that are basically just showing their entire experience of sitting down, ordering, consuming a meal. That's great for that restaurant. Showing their experience of walking around downtown Tokyo at night as a foreigner. Like, that's really cool to see how someone is experiencing a world through someone else's eyes. The live stream is a concept that I think it's going to take off a lot more than just gaming. Right now it is peer level, but there are individuals that are really aspirational, like Aiden Ross, a really big name within Twitch. You can look up. You'll find that they can earn a ridiculous amount of money. So getting in front of them can be difficult. But if you're using the right peers for the live streaming experience that you're looking to promote, it can work. Twitter works the best for me. When I think of it as any bad take on the internet that can be magnified. And unfortunately, there's a lot of heat that occurs on Twitter where everyone has an opinion, and they're very strong about their opinions because they're having to write it in such a very concise methodology. There's all sorts of influencer types. You could run into Elon Musk, who is obviously an aspirational influencer, but he might also be seen as authoritative when discussing, lithium batteries, for instance. There's peer is everywhere. I like to use Twitter primarily when I'm working on campaigns associated with PR, where you're using it to just amplify things. You're looking to try to see what is out there that I need to get greater and broader exposure. Twitter is fantastic for this on the retweet process because you're just popping it into someone else's feed. Most people prefer to consume the information in a timeline format versus popularity format. So if you're able to spread it over a period of time, you increase your likelihood of popping into their particular feeds. You could use it to shift public perception too. So if you had some bad news, Twitter is a great way to try to drown it out and co-opt a particular hashtag and shift it into something positive for you. Yelp is tricky. If you have a business that's on Yelp, you do not want to try to game the system because they will probably sue you. So really the best strategy that works with them is the strategy I recommend with Google GMB, in which case is just asking for honest reviews, let them know that you're on Yelp as a platform, and let them do their work for you. This is the peer level because you're just looking for consumers to leave their experiences there and allow those experiences to carry your reputation. YouTube, I think, is obviously extremely powerful, but I think it's more powerful than people realize because it's so diverse and it's so I'm sorry, I'm just blathering a little bit, but it really is super useful. Any influencer type can work with this. There's short videos, there's very long videos. And therefore, it's like a broadcast, it's television in a digital format. It really, really is. So if your product is really complicated, you might get a really authoritative influencer to just walk through a 30-minute video on everything that it is possible that this product can solve and work with. It works great. For mass appeal, the Kardashians actually started on YouTube a little bit before they were in Instagram in terms of some of their earlier products like the diet tea stuff and then teeth whitening stuff. So there is the broad mass market that's shifted in these aspirational. PewDiePie is very, very big on YouTube still. So if it has the mass appeal, that works. If it's searched heavily within a particular category, you might want to get as many peer level reviews as you can just to try to dominate the YouTube algorithm for determining which product's shown. I also like it because you could take YouTube videos and embed them in blog posts. So if you're pairing this with an SEO strategy, you're getting multiple signals all at once. You're able to drive views and traffic back to YouTube, which might in turn help it to rank within Google for that YouTube video, as well as on YouTube. And it's going to keep people on that blog post for longer. Therefore, that blog post itself is probably going to be viewed more favorably within Google. So take advantage of the fact that Google's an absolute monopoly. Being at a conference, now that we've shifted into public relations. So this doesn't mean speaking at it. This is like you're just showing up to the conference. Maybe you're doing it in a guerrilla format where you have a lot of different swag and you're trying to get, pass out the swag. I've written about this in the Drum. You can look there for some of my other pieces on this, but this is all about just, this is a branding aspect. You're going to the conference to improve your branding. Some things that you might want to consider is if you could run a contest associated with your swag. I like to think of like what would happen if I paid people to wear my t-shirt on stage when they're presenting. Okay, cool. That's neat. I don't know what dollar amount might work at the next X amounts. That's just a concept. Well, what would happen if I paid anyone that wore my t-shirt on stage as they're presenting $10,000? Could I get most of the speakers to wear my t-shirt? That's really going to change how the rest of the audience is viewing, your product or service. They would be wondering, why is this a conference for that particular product? Something to consider. Now, if you go to the point where you're actually hosting an event, and I've run some through the Digital Marketers Organization, you'll find it's a great methodology to establish authority, especially if you're new to the space. You put together a quick event, you invite a lot of experts to speak, you compensate them for your speaking, you invite a lot of individuals, and you're not looking to make money usually when you're hosting an event. You're usually going to lose money on it. But the whole point of it is you don't have to hard sell. Maybe you're using just your office, maybe you rent a space in order to do this. But the whole point is to establish yourself as credible. And really, because you're offering something to your audience, the law of reciprocity, which is a Cialdini concept, comes into play, where they want to pay you back in some unconscious way. So Anatoly is putting this whole thing together. He reached out to most of the industry to figure out, could you do a course and it's going to benefit Ukraine? He's doing all this, right? And so we're putting this out there. What happens? He's going to be providing this sort of stuff to the audience. Is that going to work out to his end goal? My guess would be yes. Media interviews, it's a lot like podcast interviews. You have the think piece in your head that you're looking to do. Well, you're looking to try to get that interviewer to interviewee authority transfer that take place. Therefore, it is absolutely an authoritative the authoritative influencer strategy that you're doing. You're just looking to pass a test. Whether this is radio or television, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. It's just, it's a public relations piece that exists. And we're going to pair it with press in a little bit, but it works great when you have the interviews and you could use it for social amplification. You could do the as seen in stuff on your website for the sameness, likeness, and trust authority. Press releases. So Cision calls itself an influencer database. And so therefore, we're thinking of this, again, an authoritative concept. Now, a lot of people used to create press releases just for SEO, and it worked for a while. It doesn't work quite the same anymore. What I love to do is when I'm creating a press release, I like to think of which journalist do I want to read this and say, I need to get more information about this. If you're creating press with that in mind, you're targeting specific journalists with your press, it's going to lead into the media interviews, which you can then amplify. Think of it all as a strategy versus a singular tactic. Speaking at events, this is essentially what I'm doing right now. And it tends to be an authoritative thing. If you've never heard of me before, then chances are, if you've made it this far in the video, you're at least aware of who I am and the industries that I play in. Therefore, it's once again an authority transfer. Now, standing on stage, it can be very difficult for a lot of people. It's that 60 minutes of terror, I like to say. But once you do that, and you come off as credible, and you make it through, and you help to educate the audience, chances are you're able to establish yourself as someone that, when they recommend a product or service, it's going to be purchased at a higher rate than if you didn't hear of them in the past. It's branding as well as trust. So I'm using this particular temporary authority because Anatoly provided this particular opportunity to try to pass on the information. And if you're not able to get to the point where you're able to speak yet, sponsorships works great. Because again, you're working with a particular audience. You could do the sponsorships at an event, but you could also do sponsorships external to events too. A concept I like to think of is, if I was an eyeglasses company, I might sponsor a gala for children's blindness. It's tangential. You think of blindness, you think of eyesight, you think of eyeglasses. So there's an association. When you go to local sports fields, look around to see what type of advertisements are on the fence. Chances are it's going to be very localized businesses. Maybe it's a pool creation company, or it's a realtor insurance firm. They tend to be a little bit more mass appeal. They slightly touch on the type of influencers. Maybe sometimes it's a little bit celebrity, or like at least local celebrity, but it's usually showing you the peer demographics and their usage of the product. I probably don't have to explain too much about affiliate marketing. It really is influencer marketing. If you think about it, you're paying marketers to sell for you. And so it can come across all types of influencers. You might have the celebrity level, you might have the authority affiliate marketer, you might just have peer level. And it depends on like where those links are being found initially. So it might be on authoritative pieces, it might just be within search because some black hat knew what he was doing, or she. There could be a lot of different mechanisms. So the buyer, when they're coming across this, they trusted, at least to some capacity, the link that they're following, which ended up on your site. So there was some transfer of influence that does occur. Affiliates telling your story for you is great because if it's backing out in a positive ROI, never stop it. I think billboards are intriguing to me, at least from a paid advertising point of view, because if you think about it, they really are analog Instagram. And so you're going to find yourself in that either a peer level or you're going to be viewing a celebrity. You're driving. You don't have a ton of time to make a decision beyond a snap decision. So it tends to really speak to a particular demographic, i.e. someone that's in a car, or it's going to use like, hey, I recognize that celebrity as a mechanism to push a product or service, usually a product. The sad thing is, if you pay attention to a lot of the billboards you cross, it's usually going to be some sort of fast food, or it's going to be accident, DUI, injury attorneys, simply because the recall is particularly important because the individual might have been pulled over. They don't have an attorney. They look up, say, okay, that's who I'm calling. That's just reality. Mailers can be pretty cool. If you know the various zip codes that you're looking to target, zip code-based mailers can work. A service I like to recommend here is Handwritten. You'll see that there. It's with a WRYTTEN. So what they did is they created their own handwriting robots with pen and paper, and they can mimic exactly a brand's provided signature and handwriting style, and then send out mass-created actual handwritten pieces of marketing. That works a lot better than just like an inkjet of, hey, I'm interested in buying your house. So there are certain industries where it works really well, the coupon side of things, mass products that are very, tend to be focused, such as like a plumbing and AC repair, realty. I see that works really great there. So next door, I mentioned when we were early on in the presentation that this can be considered social network, but it's very, very hyper localized. So I put it in paid advertising because you're really looking to connect with peers. I think Nextdoor's, I think their slogan is good things happen when neighbors talk, or something along those lines. And of course, there's a lot of parodies to it because sometimes when neighbors talk, bad things happen, which is somewhat funny to watch as an objective third party. But what I'm thinking here is, there's this big network that I'm obviously looking at. It's Nextdoor. And the reason I am is because I understand, the advertisers that are working within Nextdoor have incredibly good ROIs. If you have ad budget and you are providing a localized product, look at Nextdoor. It's also really hard to break into too, if you want to try to circumvent the ad process. And the reason that is because in Nextdoor, you're required to have the postcard code or an invite from someone else as a neighbor. So doing something at scale is extremely difficult. If I've figured out that this will be the next big channel for us. The non-UGC social ads, what I mean by this is a brand that's creating content as an ad that ends up going viral. And so if people think about this, they're peer because they're looking to connect with individuals that might just be purchasing the product. There's generally no celebrity aspect to it or authority. Think about Wendy's. Wendy's extremely snarky on Twitter, and they really started this in brand Twitter, where being snarky, they got everyday consumers to want to go interact with their channel, which is fantastic. And then from there, people are sharing their responses to it. And then some brands do it very, very poorly. So Burger King was an example where they had some misguided statements that they put out where it sounded like they had a strategy by committee that backfired spectacularly. So don't be Burger King, be more Wendy's. Podcast ads, they tend to play a role, especially if you're not able to be an interviewee on a particular podcast. What's occurring here is you can get the authority transfer, of course, if the ad is relevant. But to usually be on there, you have to have some sort of subject expertise. So like I mentioned, like I listened to This Week in Virology. It's pretty cool. I like virology, but I am certainly not an expert. So I wouldn't be able to push IntelliFluence there. It wouldn't make any sense. If I had created a basic course of here's what I've learned in the last 2 years of a pandemic on virology, they might be interesting. And maybe it's interesting enough to where I could purchase an ad because it's relevant, but not so interesting that I would be able to be a guest on the show because it probably wouldn't be that good. Print advertising is also not dead. You know, a lot of people have been saying that it's dead for, let's see, I've been alive since the late 70s, so the late 70s. You know, I view it a lot like billboards and sponsorships, where you have a split second to create that frame of mind for the consumer as a brand. But at the same time, there's also the sponsorship level where you need to understand who the buying demographic is and associate yourself as being same. So the peer level or the celebrity to get the attention, quick message, show how there's a reasoning for choosing that product or service. Radio is fun. So in Good Morning Vietnam, I put this concept in there with a little bit of spin text for those spammers that are in the audience here. All sorts of radio ads work. So you'll hear celebrity ads. But what works the best is if you pay attention, you'll see the cadence of, hi, I am blank. I did. What they're doing here is they're showing you what they are as a demographic, why they did what they did in terms of a path from problem to solution. So if as a joke here, I'm a fat CEO. So I hear, fat CEO is always hungry for loves nachos. No nachos can satisfy my hunger like Joe's sloppy nachos. I'm gonna, put that into my GPS in the car and go there because I love my nachos and I'm a hefty guy. Skipping through though, we have TV advertising. So TV is changing obviously with streaming services, and it's kind of funny to me because it goes from consolidated to decentralized and now kind of back to consolidated because there's now so many different streaming services that ads are starting to get injected back in there with more frequency. Netflix is going to go more ads. Disney's going to have an option for ads. Like, it was inevitable. This is sort of how it happens. It's still the same within conventional terrestrial television as well. It's analog YouTube, right? So it's the same concept, although different demographics. Usually, you'll see the deep format infomercial, which you might think of similarly to like an authoritative influencer doing a long YouTube ad. Celebrities doing their 30-second spot or split 15s, creating a sense of awareness, or all the group, the peers that are hey, that person's just like me purchasing that car that I'm kind of interested in. Brochures are extremely targeted. And so the concept of brochure I'm thinking of is you're going into a doctor's office and you see the trifold glossy papers. So this is usually either authoritative or it's peer. On the peer level, the demographics are obviously very, very well known. If you're going into a cardiologist's office, chances are it's going to skew older, and you can look at the demographics beyond that. So the individuals are going to be older. On one part of it, it's probably going to be a little bit shaded, black and white almost. And then on the solution, or they bought this pill. Look at this, they're all bright, happy, smiling. The other side of it is the authoritative piece, where the pharmaceutical company is the one that's creating this experience, or the doctor's service is creating this experience of happiness, and that's the authority transfer. They're just showing that they're good for what they're doing. Customer loyalty, it's really just about repeat purchasing. So if you do any sort of CRM marketing, this is your world. You're working towards peers because you're just getting to come back and re-interact. Where the way that you work with it on an influence level is it's not so much like it's time to buy your next pizza. Okay, that's kind of boring. Cool, you gave me a coupon. But it's letting you know, like, hey, people like you bought this service and repeatedly did so. Or, hey, if you like this, people that also bought that found they were even happier. That's all it is. It's just like using the database of associated products and then applying a peer level to it. If you have any sort of basic demographics from your consumer base that you're able to use without getting in trouble, that comes into play here. And you can pair it with referrals too. Like if you allow them to go ahead and share this experience out, and you're going to get 10% off your next purchase. That's when you're creating that for the additional flywheel. Digital signage, I view primarily like a flat screen TVs. You're just sitting in a restaurant and you're watching it. You'll find a lot of times it's just promoting a lot of internal products, and sometimes it has ads on top of it. What I find neat is you could use a celebrity stuff, but usually it's an authority level where you're trying to appeal to the authority of someone that is an expert in that field did something, and therefore you should too. So the joke that I like to tell here is that John Mueller went into Joe's Sloppy Nachos and he ordered a delicious Pilsner. He could be happier. Now, as the fat CEO, I went to Joe's Sloppy Nachos, but I just kind of water. So I'm seeing this ad that's telling me, hey, you should upgrade your meal based on what John did, since he's so well known within the SEO space. Okay, yeah, in some cases that's going to work, and you can get targeted. I don't see restaurants targeting it nearly as well to know what the order that's being put in and whether or not they should tie it to an upsell on additional signage. But that time is coming. And really, if someone sees it enough times, they will want to start drinking. I'm going to talk about exterior signage primarily as it pertains to like sandwich boards and outside signage. That's really all it means. It's peer level. Someone that's walking up and down the street, with handing out samples, that's peer level influence. And like you're just getting people to come in based on the demographic of being local and interested in food. There's a slight way to enhance it is if the person's really into those samples, like let's say it's like at a bar and they're doing Jello shots for every one that they hand out, they take one. Well, sure, you're going to be pretty effective in that strategy. Free consults work primarily on the offline space as a mechanism to show that a person is an expert. That's the whole point. When someone comes in for a lawyer or a doctor or anything for a free consult, that is the opportunity for that service provider to show that they are the right person to deal with, and that's why you should open up your wallet and pay them money. So it's a mechanism of overcoming the cognitive dissonance. So in SaaS, the way it works is free trials. Like if you're really confident in your product, you're going to utilize either exports to show it on some of those other channels we talked about, like webinars and podcasts and newsletters, or you're going to give them a free trial. And you're going to rely on the data that you're able to gather and provide for those potential consumers as a mechanism to basically use your product and become paid users later. That's why I'm willing to give away a 1-year subscription because I know the product works. Same concept. Now, giveaways and contests, I love these, and I realize I'm coming up on an hour here, and so we'll get through the rest of it pretty quickly. The reason I love it is on a peer level, you can run contests and give them multiple steps. Make them do a bunch of different hoop jumping as a mechanism of earning potential money. And this example, I think it was last year, giving away like $1,100, and all they had to do was retweet a message and put it out there. And you can do this as a retweet. You can do it on Instagram where they're tagging multiple friends. There was a somewhat famous example where a bikini company did this. They're willing to give away a free bikini if you tagged like multiple friends. And it got so popular that they had to shut everything down. I think they overreacted, but that concept went so viral that there was no way they could possibly keep up with demand. If you're able to do that, your best bet there is to sell to a bigger company that wants those potential consumers. But this is something you can time a particular giveaway to get additional branding, especially on Twitter, especially on Instagram, when you know that there's going to be high expected demand anyhow. Think like Christmas shopping season. Interactive signs, it's like a narrative. You have a storytelling that you're wanting to do, and so you're just walking a user through. I see silly quizzes inside of restaurants as an example where they're asking like, which type of Gryffindor are you from Harry Potter? And they're walking through like, oh, well, this guy bought a Pilsner. That's all it's looking to do. You're planting an idea in a person's head, and you're allowing them to come up with their solution and let them think that they came up with the idea. On-hold messaging, the reason I really want to point this out, and it is a way of influencer marketing, is someone that's calling in is usually not calling for a good reason. They're usually upset something went wrong. So you either want to offer the sober, cold advice of an authority that's letting them know what's occurring, or have peer stories of how their problems were solved. The last thing you want to do is a real happy, hi, welcome. Your calls are really important to us, but it's not. They'll immediately feel as though it's not. If instead they're calling them like, every call is answered. We don't hang up the phone until our consumers are satisfied. So any experience you may experience, that's solely because we really care about making sure that you're satisfied. Your call will be answered and orders are received. If you want to provide a callback number, we will call you back and we will solve your problem. You want to do this sort of thing. It's going to reduce your complaints. It's going to reduce your refunds, because a lot of people that are on hold forever hang up, get you mad, and they do a chargeback. And also regulatory concerns if you're in a heavily regulated industry. Now, skywriting, I've never done this. I think it's just really neat because it's a local type of concept. You're usually only going to advertise a product that's very local to where the skywriting is going to be seen. You could have authority hijacking. You can have celebrity hijacking. The joke I'll show here is Cher. For those that are old enough to remember her, she changed her wigs quite a bit in shows. So I'd say, Cher's eats that Joe's sloppy nachos. Nachos so sloppy, she changes her wigs twice during dinner. To convey the concept of a celebrity eating at a nacho place, so it must be pretty decent. And the nachos are obviously so sloppy, she has to keep changing her wig. Packaging is your mechanism of showing what your brand wants to be known for. And it's peer level. So, the package might be sitting outside the door, like an Amazon box with a smile on it. Are they delivering happiness? Tiffany's, the somewhat off-color joke I'll tell there is, you could pick up after your dog and put it in a Tiffany's bag, and it'll be viewed as more valuable than if you had put it in a plastic bag, simply because of what Tiffany shows. It's the quality, it's the desire. So like, what is your brand want to be known for, and do you play a role within packaging? How are you going to convey this to that person's peers in a way that they want to be associated with? Promotions. I mean, obviously, you can think of it in terms of like the contest. You can think about it in terms of the CRM stuff. So there's the loyalty aspect. There is the direct and coupon aspect. What I think is really cool is, and this is a peer level strategy, is you can combine these things together. And a lot of pizza companies are actually getting pretty good in the United States about this, doing personalized coupons of, your wife loves Hawaiian pizza. You haven't bought it in 3 months. Here's a coupon for Hawaiian pizza. Okay, cool. I like to keep my wife happy. That's a good strategy generally. So the peer level approach that I'd like to see in the future is 3 of the last 5 years, you've purchased at least 10 pizzas on Halloween. 2 of those last 5 years, you were unsuccessful in purchasing pizza because your neighbors beat you to it. Halloween's around the corner. Are you going to purchase pizza or not? It's a mechanism to think about all these things of, they're going to give me a coupon to do it. It understands the customer loyalty. It's playing upon like a little scarcity strategy of the peer did it across the street for his little party for the kids in the neighborhood. Are you going to do it too? That's the end of this, right? If I missed a channel, sorry, there's so many channels. Again, like the more I talk, the more I find more ones. And it is already over an hour. But I'd like you to play with your own data here. If you go to intellifluence.com/Ukraine, it will redirect you to an AppSumo created offer that will give you 1 free year of access to our platform. I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you very much for listening to this talk.
Now that you've gone through this course, you could see just how many different ways influencers can be used to help your business. So what you're going to need to do is figure out those top mediums that best support your business in the use of influencers and just get started. You now have that code that you can use to register on my platform. Use the data, use the data in front of you to determine what your next step's going to be. We look forward to seeing you in the platform.